Hey everyone, Dave here. I wanted to do a haul. I was just at a book fair and I thought found some interesting stuff. So let's talk about that. I feel like I haven't really talked too much about books very much on this channel, and I would like to do so because, as you can see, I certainly have some. Not a huge collection of books, but enough to warrant that I should probably speak about them more often. So let's get into what I found at this book fair. Not book related or music related. Uh, Outburst. Super fun game. I hadn't played this in, I don't know, 25 years or something. Absolutely had this growing up. Can't believe, it ends up in a garage sale at some point and then you never see it again. So, Outburst, looking forward to playing it. Also found, and I do have a copy of this already, which I think might actually be missing a couple pieces, but Trivial Pursuit. You know what the hardest thing about Trivial Pursuit is? Trying to find someone to play it with you. At least that's how it's been for me. Maybe everyone else has a different experience with it, but I always really liked it. Trivia game. I will say one of its, as far as the original, one of its faults, I guess, is that it's very topical for the time that it came out in. What was it, like 81, 82 or something it came out in? So, I think it's just a little too topical. If it had maybe more timeless, more historical things, maybe it'd be easier. But there's a lot of expansion packs and whatnot, so all in due time. But again, like I said, the hardest part of Trivial Pursuit is finding someone to play with you. I jest. So let's get on to the books. I'm not going to go in any particular order here. It is literally just how these are stacked right here. They're right here. So I will start with what is on top. And I saw this. Pardon me, I'm getting over a cold. I saw this and I was a little surprised that it was even made. I've heard the album. I've seen bits and pieces of the TV special. Certainly not the high watermark of this person's career, but I found a book. I think it is a kind of a behind the scenes, how it was made book of Paul McCartney's Give My Regards to Broad Street. Came out in, what was it, 84, 85? The album had some, was it No More Lonely Nights? I think it was. And some reimaginings of Beatles songs. It is what it is. A beautiful disaster or a disastrous beauty. Either way, there it was. I'm like, you know what? I need to find that. This next one, I had this when it first came out. And at the time I was kind of into this show, certainly its original run in the movies. I do still like the original run of movies and more the newer movies. I wouldn't consider myself a big fan of this franchise at all. I certainly don't dislike it, but found a copy of the Star Trek Encyclopedia. I believe this is the first edition. This is certainly the edition that I remember seeing when I had it. I certainly like the original series here and there. Next Generation was good. After that, I just didn't really care too much. I know there's been, half a dozen or so TV series since then. The movies that came out were great. the motion picture, Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock. Those were all great. The newer movies that came out with Chris Pine, those were great. I was really hoping they would make a fourth one of those, but yeah, I mean, I think they were selling this for like $2 or something. I'm like, you know what? It's a bit of a nostalgia trip for me, so I think I'll take it. Randomly saw this in amongst their science fiction section at this book fair. I'm not the biggest fiction reader, here and there, every once in a while, and I had just talked about this movie and was playing the classic 5-note motif that people will recognize from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I do love the movie. I think it is one of Spielberg's best movies. I don't think it's my favorite Spielberg movie. That might be Jaws, actually, but I really like the movie. Look how creepy that is. The kid standing before the bright lights. I love the movie, and it's like, well, why read the book when you can just watch the movie? Well, sometimes I have found that a novelization, they just kind of present the story, maybe not more in depth, but maybe a little bit more thoughts of the character, what they're thinking in that moment, or, describing a scene in a way that wasn't presented in the movie. Just kind of gives a little more insight to the movie. Of course, it can be argued, well, sometimes the book is better than the movie, or sometimes the movie is better than the book. Why would they make a novelization? I don't know, it's just fun, and for $1, you can't go wrong. So, I look forward to reading this, just to have a fun kind of little read, as it says there. We are not alone. Or so they say. I found these. I don't know if there is more to this series or not. I imagine there is. I haven't really looked through these yet. This is from the Classic Wisdom New World Library series. And one of them is Native American Wisdom. The other one is The Soul of an Indian and Other Writings from Ohiesa. I might be mispronouncing that. And this last one, The Wisdom of the Great Chiefs. And I just love Native American history. I think it is incredibly fascinating. Like where to even begin there? It's so vast. It has such depth. Culturally, it's absolutely incredible. I think as far as, I don't want to get on any kind of soapbox right now, but I do feel like there could be a better representation of, Native American and maybe First Nations. I don't really know how the two differ. I think First Nations is maybe more Canadian. Just more positive, not that there's not positive, but representation of that in this country. I know we like to have them as mascots for teams, but, maybe a city name here and there. But it's, just kind of a shame that there's just not more visibility of that. I don't know. Cold coffee on a hot summer day. This next one, I had heard about it. I haven't really heard many reviews of it, and I'm not sure how much I'm really going to like it, but I love the Beatles. My number one favorite band, the great game-changing band for me. And I always enjoy reading history just into their legend and their story. And saw this, and it's called Riding So High, The Beatles and Drugs. cool John Lennon glasses there with that kind of yellow submarine animated artwork going on. And I thought this could be interesting, just kind of getting maybe a better insight into that aspect of them. I wouldn't say it's a defining feature of them at all, but there's a definite change from a song like Please Please Me or A Hard Day's Night to Within You Without You, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Like, well, what happened there? What changed? So I do look forward to reading this. This next set, 3-volume set, I was very happy to find. I'd been kind of on the hunt for it for a while. I had always heard I don't want to say mixed reviews of it, but I've heard a lot of positive things about it. Maybe some negatives as far as romanticizing things that maybe shouldn't be romanticized with regards to, the South's lost cause kind of thing. And even if it might skew that way, I do think there is something that I believe can absolutely be gleaned from this 3-volume set. It is Shelby Foote's Civil War, a narrative. Got volume 1 right there. Fort Sumter to Perryville. You got volume 2, Fredericksburg to Meridian. Oop, I'm losing stuff. Look at that. I didn't know that was in there. It's always a surprise. Ooh, is there anything else? Nope, nothing else. But again, volume 2. And my entire stack just fell over. That's what happens when you try to balance everything on that Outburst box, which is about that thin. Volume 3, Red River to Appomattox. So I thought it would just be helpful to read something like that. And I actually have another book regarding the Civil War that I would also like to read, Battle Cry of Freedom, James McPherson. I've heard great things about this as well. I think it was a part of, was it like the Oxford History series? Like a lot of authors were commissioned to write very full-bodied narratives about various moments in history. I think the Revolutionary War was one. So yeah, I would kind of like to read the 4 of them kind of back to back to maybe compare and contrast and see how they compare. So, and as far as those Shelby Foote books, maybe in the next year I'll get to them. They'll take a while. I mean, in volume 1 alone, and again, the book length is not something that has ever, well, certainly not in my adult life, has ever really intimidated me. I don't care if a book is long, but 800 plus pages. But again, I think it's good to study these things, review these things. You go through school and you learn kind of piecemeal history. It's good later on in life to really dive into it. So that was the book fair. And I look forward to playing some games, maybe learning a little Star Trek history. And thanks for hanging out.